One of the biggest challenges an artist faces is trying to price their art. It's I think, a really emotional process, because it's almost like putting a price on ourselves. It's almost like putting a price on you when you're trying to actually find a price to put on your work. And I've created a video of this before, but I wanted to create an updated video because I've got some more ideas that are going to be really, really helpful for anybody who is wanting to put their work out there and price their art. Now, the biggest thing, which takes time, is to remove yourself from your work. Make it so that your work you do it, but you don't hold that emotion against it. I think that's incredibly important, because then you can let it go, you can add a price to it, and it doesn't become sort of something that is like, oh gosh, how am I going to put a price to this? It's basically like, I'm selling myself, selling my soul, which it is like that when you're selling your art. So I've put together a few bits and pieces that I want to talk about. I've got an 8-step way of pricing your art. I've got some ideas as to how you can price your art. There's all sorts of different ways that you can do it. And I'm going to talk to you about how I priced my art when I first started out. So, factors to consider when you are starting to put a price on your art. How developed are you? How long have you been drawing or painting or whatever it is that you're doing? What is your development level? What is your skill level? So how skilled are you compared to others in your genre and others in your sort of development group as well? And also, how confident are you? The more confident you are, the more likely it is that your prices will be higher. And the less confident, then you're going to feel sort of like slightly less able, if you like, to price your work at a higher level. If you haven't been drawing for very long, then you're less likely to have a bigger following on social media. It's probably a better idea to start on the lower scale of things. If you have been drawing for quite some time and you're not selling your work, it might be the right time to have a look at your marketing plan, because honestly, it's never really about the pricing. It's more about how you're putting yourself out there. So if you are an artist and you haven't got full books and you are struggling to get work, then have a look at your marketing plan. It could actually be that you need to raise your prices rather than lower them. An awful lot of people do actually lower their prices when they're not selling their work. And I would really recommend against doing that. So there are lots of different ways of pricing your work. You will probably have a favourite way. You can guess what price you want to do, which is pretty much what I did at the beginning. You could go with a formula. You could go with an hourly rate. Or you could go with researching your fellow artists and kind of slotting yourself in around what they're doing. Now, guessing is what I did from the beginning. I kind of went, what do I feel comfortable at selling my work for? Yeah, that sounds okay. And I started with £40. So let's go with £40. You could use a formula. A lot of people use inch times the cost that you put on an inch. So say you have an 8 by 10 piece and you charge £2 per inch, then you times your 8 by 10, which gives you 80, and then you times that by how much you charge per inch, which is 2. So that gives you a total price of 160, which actually isn't a bad place to start out. £160 for an 8 by 10 isn't a bad place to start out. You might want to go down the route of an hourly rate. You've got to be really, really careful when you're going down this route, because a lot of the time you'll see artists spending a huge amount of time on a piece, 40, 50 hours on a piece, and then they break down how much that costs per hour, and they end up earning something crazy like £1.50, and you cannot live on £1.50 an hour. So when you're thinking about using the hourly rate, Again, you have to really, really think about your development, your skill level, about other artists around you, about how long you've been doing it. There's all of those factors to bring into it. Because if you say, right, I want to earn £30 an hour, and then you end up, you know, spending 10, 20, maybe 30 hours, you're then going to be charging quite a lot of money, which is great if you're established and your skill level is really good and your development is good. But if you're just starting out and you charge yourself at £30 an hour and you take, say, 20 hours to do something, that's £600 right there as a starting point. For someone who's just starting out, my feeling is, yes, we should all be reaching for the stars. We should all be reaching for those higher price points. But when you're first starting out, you know, you've got to be realistic with what you're doing. And of course, you can then create a plan of action to be able to sort of up those prices. So, you know, hourly rate, but be realistic with what you're doing with the hourly rate. And then researching fellow artists. So research artists who are in the same genre as you, the same skill level as you, the same development as you. If you're just starting out and you're wanting to put a price on your work, you would not therefore research somebody who had been doing or in this industry for 5, 6, 7 years, even sort of, well, 2 years, because they're going to be far more further on in their journey. They're going to be more skilled, they're going to be more developed, not all of the time, but you know, that's kind of what you're going to be able to see. So then classing yourself in with those people is not necessarily going to be realistic. So look at people who are just on the same level as you, they've been doing it for a similar amount of time as you, and look at the lower rate of pricing and look at the higher rate of pricing, and then take that average and pop yourself in the middle. Once you've then got your pricing, you can then start to think about how you're going to develop that, how you're going to raise your prices. And so how I raised my prices was, as soon as I had a couple of months full books, they could be 2 portraits, they could be 10 portraits, whatever it is that your full books are, you then raise your prices. So you're raising your prices on a regular basis, probably 6 times a year, which might seem extreme, but we're only raising them by a nominal amount, a small amount. So say you start off with £100, your pieces cost £100. 2 months' time, you've got full books for 2 months. So you raise your prices by £20. So then your lowest price starts at 120. If somebody's going to pay 100, they're going to pay 120. Then another couple of months, full books, you're going to raise it from 120 to maybe 150. If they're going to pay 120, they're going to pay 150. And you keep going. The worst thing you can do is to set your prices, get a whole year of people booked in, because then you've got everybody paying the same price, and a year from now they're still going to be paying £100. Whereas if you regularly up your prices by a tiny amount, it doesn't have to be a huge amount, at the end of the year you're still booking people in and they're paying more. You cannot run a business charging £100 for a portrait. Well, you can run a business, but you're not going to make a living from that. So you've got to be really, really clued up on your pricing, and you've got to really have a goal price in sight. So for example, I started drawing in 2016. When people started asking me to draw portraits for them, I did them for free to begin with, and then I charged £40. When I became a full-time artist, how I decided on my pricing was, I worked out how much I needed to earn a month. That was my starting point. How much do I need to earn a month to be able to pay my bills, pay my mortgage, and kind of cover everything? And then what I did was I worked out how many portraits I could actually physically do a month. And I was probably unrealistic, but I did manage to do the amount that I chose. So I chose to do 8 portraits a month, which is a huge amount, and it's a ridiculous amount now. And I would not recommend anybody doing 8 portraits a month. It was basically 2 a week. But I was drawing back then 8 to 10 hours every single day. That was what I was doing. Now it's completely different. You know, I managed to maybe get 4 hours a day in if I'm lucky. But back then, 8 to 10 hours was doable for me, and I absolutely loved it. So I took the amount that I needed, which was £2,000. I divided it by the 8 and I came up with 250. So that was my starting point, £250. And I had a goal to get to £500 for a portrait within sort of 12 to 18 months. I can remember my words. I was like, nobody, oh my goodness, nobody's going to pay £500 for a portrait. The pricing structure I have now, and I'm just about to put my pricing up again, my smallest piece, which is a 10 by 12, will be starting at £1,000. So that's 7 years I've been drawing, and I've gone from £40 to £1,000. Even that is, you know, it's really good value. So don't ever think that you can't raise your prices, because you can. And I'm going to go through some myths that you'll hear all of the time on social media. And I want to kind of just put that to bed a little bit and do a little bit of myth busting around pricing as well.